Okay, happy afternoon, everyone. So my class is like oocyte morphology. It's a vast topic. Actually, I don't know how to finish it within 1 hour. I've just tell a summary. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me, and I'll try to finish it within 45 minutes. So if I'm not audible, please let me know. So this is one of the important topic where most of the embryologists will ignore. Okay, they will just grade it as average, below average, or sometimes poor quality. Okay, so even myself also we do same thing in embryology lab. So once we once we are we give the clear picture of the oocyte, the clinician can decide. If the patient is not conceiving, the clinician can convince the patient, as well as during second cycle, she can change the protocol, what she is doing. If she knows, she has the clear picture about the oocyte, which she had got in the previous cycle. So let us study very important thing. Like, this is an oocyte, so I'm not going to touch anything about the basics. Okay, and you know that this is a oocyte. Okay, this schematic picture, and this is oolemma and ooplasm, and this is zona pellucida. So what we see basically in embryology lab is that we see first cumulus cells. Okay, immediately after pickup, the clinician will come inside and ask how is the oocyte quality. So just be seeing the cumulus cells, we can decide for about 15%. Okay, oocyte looks like this, oocyte looks like that. We can just tell them. Okay, and to be very frank, there is no grading system for the oocyte. Okay, till now, Escherichia has not released any grading system for the oocyte. We generally see the morphology of the oocyte, and we decide like whether the oocyte is good or bad. Okay. So usually, what we focus here is that we just focus on the polar body. Okay, first we see the morphology of the before that we see the morphology of the zona pellucida. Today we will be discussing about the zona pellucida morphology. Then we see the polar body, then we see the cytoplasm. There is ooplasm of the oocyte, and we decide whether there is anything inside or whether it is clear. Okay, then after that we even see immediately after pickup, we see for this cumulus complex. So you should know what is cumulus complex. Say this here there will be cumulus cells. So here once you get the follicle, so here there will be scattered cumulus cells. So some cumulus cells which are near to these oocytes, which is called as corona cells. Okay. Okay, just I can just draw the picture and show you. Like the cumulus cells which are near to this zona. So there will be cumulus cells near to this zona. These cumulus cells are called as corona cells. These corona cells will send its cytoplasmic extensions to this oocyte. Okay, this oocyte, and this organized structure. Okay, this organized structure is called as COC, cumulus oocyte complex. So what I want to tell you is that we see for cumulus oocyte complex, initially. After denudation, we see for polar body, we see for zona pellucida, we see for cytoplasm. And in between this cytoplasm, the ooplasm and this zona pellucida, there will be small space here. It's called as PVS, perivitline space. We see for that also. And we also see for this shape of the oocyte. And the papers, research papers, they are telling, the researchers are telling that the shape of the oocyte sometimes it does not matter. Okay, like if it is somewhat oval, does not matter. But most of the time, it is considered like if it is irregular in shape, then it is called as abnormal oocyte. it has to be discarded. So these are the main thing we notice in the morphology of the oocyte. So this is an ideal oocyte. Okay, usually the oocyte, its normal size is around 110 to 120 micron, and the shape is somewhat roughly spherical in shape. Okay, and the cytoplasm, usually cytoplasm, you can see this oocyte, the cytoplasm is moderately granular. Okay, and it will be somewhat clear, not very clear, moderately granular. And you can see a small perivitline space. Okay, means small perivitline. You can see perivitline space here, and you can't see perivitline space here. So this is a quality of ideal oocyte. So 3/4 you should be able to see the perivitline space. 1/3 it has to get attached to the zona pellucida. So the zona pellucida. So here there is no perivitline space can be seen. And here you can see the perivitline space. This is mainly produced by this polar body. And we see for zona pellucida, this is zona thickness of the zona pellucida. So the zona pellucida should be clear in color. Okay. And we see for polar body, this polar body should be intact, the polar body. Okay. And this polar body size should be less than 5% of the total cell volume. And very important to notice in this ideal oocyte is that refractal body should be absent, smooth endoplasmic reticulum should be absent, vacuoles should be absent. All these three inclusions should be absent, should not be there. This is an ideal oocyte. Okay, so you know that there is a difference, okay, between the natural cycle and the stimulated cycle. So when we stimulate the oocyte to produce more and stimulate the ovary to produce more and more oocytes, so it will be like this, like eggs, with some may be good or some may be bad. Okay, and natural will be always natural. Okay, like you will get a good quality oocyte like this. Now, see, one very important to notice is that the articles, the paper says that only 5% of stimulated oocytes will give live birth. Not all the oocyte will give the live birth. And coming on to this, let us talk directly, move to the oocyte morphology. So let us start with the cumulus oocyte complex or oocyte cumulus complex. So the moment you remove the oocyte from the ovary, so it will look like this, students. And see here, what I want to tell you is that this oocyte, this cumulus cells will be expanded, okay, and separated each other by the extracellular matrix. These are expanded cumulus cells are expanded and separated each other by the extracellular matrix. Means it is like a sunburst. The cumulus cell will appear like a sunburst. And secondly, very important to notice is that the corona cells, which is adjacent to those, which is attached to this oocyte, becomes less compact. Okay, see the corona cell which is present here, which is near to the oocyte, which becomes less compact. Okay, and it will be just radiating away from the oocyte, or I can say zona pellucida or oocyte. Okay, then see this is a thing. This is an ideal cumulus complex which we see under the stereosome microscope. So like cumulus cells are like it looks like a sunburst, and these cumulus cells are expanded. Now coming on to this next slide. So let us study. This is a normal oocyte cumulus complex. So let us study about the abnormal, how it will look, the abnormal oocyte cumulus complex. So I have just put 3 pictures. I have not got beautiful pictures. Just I put 3 pictures. This first picture, this picture This corona cells and you can say cumulus as well as corona cells are tightly packed. It is compacted or adherent to each other, and these cells are mostly immature cells. If you get cumulus cells, okay, like this, it is mostly immature. It may be GV or it may be an M1. And secondly, when zona pellucida, it is very dark. See here, the zona pellucida is very dark in color, and corona is tightly adherent. Okay, corona cells are tightly adherent to this zona pellucida. And the cumulus cells, here you can see these are the cumulus cells, these are clusters, these are in clusters, these are in groups, and it looks very dark. Okay, so this may be due to this. We can call this type of oocyte as, or you can call this type of oocyte cumulus complex as post-mature cirrhosis. Okay, which may be due to the premature leakage or attenuated LH release during the stimulation process, or it may be due to delayed SCG administration. And thirdly, so this is this type of oocytes are post-mature oocytes, and these are like immature oocyte if it cumulus cells looks like this. And thirdly, very important is that sometimes 3% of the eggs which is obtained from this stimulated cycle will the moment you pick it from the follicular fluid, it looks irregular. It will always be irregular. It will be dark in color. Okay, and sometimes it can be brownish in color. Okay, so this type of cumulus COCs are called as ectatic or degenerating COCs. Okay. And this type of eggs are needed to be discarded. We can't do ICSI or we can't do IVF on this type of eggs. So these are the three types of cumulus usually we see in the routine practice in the embryology lab. So if it is the cumulus is very adherent, then it is immature. Okay, if it is dark in color, then it may be post-mature cirrhosis. And thirdly, they are in clusters, or if there is any change, if you can appreciate the oocytes with the irregular shape, then it may be degenerating cirrhosis. Now, coming on to this next slide, once you get the eggs, usually what we do there is that we just incubate it. After incubation, we usually denude it. So this is the denuded eggs. So we usually get three types of egg. One, it is GV. Second one, it is M1. Third, it is M2 type of egg. So GV, you can see germinal vesicle here. It's nothing but large nucleus with centrally placed nucleolus. Okay, so this type of egg, what to say, it is an immature egg, and this egg signifies that there is no nuclear maturation as well as cytoplasmic maturation has not happened here. And this in case of M1, you can see there is no germinal vesicle here. Okay, the germinal vesicle has broken down, and but there is no nuclear maturation had occurred. Here there is only cytoplasmic maturation had happened. There is no nuclear maturation there is no nuclear maturation here. And whereas here you can notice both the cytoplasmic maturation as well as nuclear maturation. Okay, because of nuclear maturation, this germinal vesicle has broken down, and due to this trigger, this has come out, polar body has come out. Now, usually, sometimes what we do is that, if we get this M1 oocyte after denudation, so we may think that we would have waited for more time. What we will do is that we will again culture it. We will again culture it for M2 So after once it becomes M2, we will inject it. But we have to keep it in the mind that HCG trigger is given when the HCG trigger is given around 12 to 14 hours. 12 to 14 hours, this germinal vesicle will be broken down, and at that around 32 34 hours of HCG trigger, this polar body is expelled. If the polar body is not expelled after giving HCG trigger, and if the polar body is expelled after the culture, that means the competence of this oocyte is not optimal. So even though we may get the embryos, it may not give pregnancy with this type of oocyte. And sometimes what we do is that, for few patients, we will get only GV oocytes. We just culture it for one day. On the day two, we do ICSI. Okay. And when we do ICSI on the day two, we may get embryo or we may not get embryo. Again, this type of oocytes, which is a very slow growing oocytes, are not recommended, because a lot of studies has to be done on this, because usually this type of oocytes will have the aneuploidy number of chromosomes. And coming on to this, we have done a study on this, like how to mature this immature oocyte in a stimulated cycle. Actually, we had come up with a paper that it's going to get published in this journal, Clinical and Experimental Reproductive Medicine. In a triggered cycle, if you get GV oocyte, how to convert it to M2. Okay, by what we have done is that we have used here chelostamide to block the nuclear maturation, and we allowed the cytoplasmic maturation. And we had come up with the embryos, but the embryos were not of good quality. It was okay, and we had tried to synchronize between the oocyte and the nucleus synchrony. We have tried to do it, and we have come up with a paper, and we have to come up with a standard protocol for this now. So these are the three oocytes we will get immediately after. So immediately after the home pickup, we'll get this. Now let us study about this oocyte morphology of M2. So when we when we get the M2 oocyte, we will basically look into all these parameters which I've already told you. Again, I'm not going to discuss. So let us go from zona pellucida. Okay, so the morphology of the oocyte, according to the literature, it is classified under these headings. One, I have already shown you about this normal morphology. So this is a normal morphology of the oocyte. And secondly, this oocyte can be evaluated by the extra cytoplasmic abnormalities also, like dark zona pellucida or large perivitline space. You see zona pellucida morphology. And we also see the oocytes with the intracytoplasmic abnormality, ooplasm abnormalities, like if there is any presence of inclusion bodies. And we see for this oocyte shape, and we also see for this multiple abnormalities of the oocyte also. Now coming on to this zona pellucida. So these are the different pictures I have put. Okay, and this is a thick zona pellucida. This is normal zona pellucida, thin zona pellucida, enlarged zona pellucida, and the dark zona pellucida, and this is some oval zona pellucida. When you see it, you normally the thickness of zona pellucida is around 10 to 31 micrometer. Okay, and average it is 15 to 20 micrometer. And these oocytes which are fertilized, okay, normally the oocytes will get fertilization without ICSI if the zona pellucida thickness is less than 18.6 micron, and if it is more than 22 micron thicker, so we have to go for ICSI procedure. Now, what I want to tell you is that, like, this zona pellucida, this is a thicker zona pellucida, and this is a normal zona pellucida, which is around less than 18 micron. So this is around 22, more than 22 micron, and you can see this is a thin zona pellucida. So thin zona pellucida, we have to be very careful while doing denudation, because this oocyte can, this zona pellucida can rupture, and oocyte can rupture because of breakage of this zona pellucida. So oocyte can come out while doing denudation. And see, whereas here this enlarged zona pellucida, you can see in the 12 o'clock position, the zona pellucida is enlarged here. And you see this dark zona pellucida. So this is mainly due to this endomitosis of this oocyte, the dark zona pellucida. And usually, when there is a dark zona pellucida, more than thickness, dark zona pellucida is always recommended for laser assisted hatching, because this dark zona pellucida has mainly, like, it has elastic, it is elastic in nature because it has a homocidrine. So always the dark zona pellucida, it is always better to go for LH, like, laser assisted hatching. And sometimes we can get this septated zona pellucida. See, this septated, the part of zona pellucida is like in inner part of zona pellucida, it got separated and formed a septate. Okay, now coming on to this, studies have shown that, like, zona pellucida, darkness of the zona pellucida, it may require LH, but it will never have fertilization rate, embryo quality, implantation rate. Okay, and even some papers are telling that even the hatching rates are also seen in the dark zona pellucida. And if if zona pellucida is thicker, it can compromise the natural cycle as well as the natural IVF cycle. Now, this zona pellucida, this I've just summarized the articles, all the article. If zona pellucida is thin, the fertilization will be, there will be increased fertilization, and care to be taken while denuding. And if zona pellucida is thick, increased oocyte development and increased embryo quality will be there, but it may require LH. And see, there's something called as bifringens, high bifringens. High bifringens means what? You see this zona pellucida, you can see very clearly the zona pellucida under conoscope, polarized microscope. Okay, and you can see this outer layer and inner. If the inner layer is very clear, okay, that means the oocyte has potential. This oocyte has a potential of increased fertilization rate, increased embryo quality, and increased blastocyst rate, increased implantation rate, everything. And if the oocyte is having low bifringens, then it is sure that increased miscarriage rate is seen. So this bifringens is always observed in the conoscope, and it is a separate topic to be discussed. Now coming on to this perivitline space. So perivitline space is again an extracellular assessing the morphology of the oocyte. This perivitline space, you can see there's an absence of perivitline space here. So here this is a normal perivitline space. As I told you, the 3/4 of the perivitline space is free, and 1/3 is attached to the zona pellucida. And here there's a large perivitline space. So when there is a large perivitline space, it may rotate the oocyte while injecting. And this large perivitline space have not shown any it's not, everything is normal. Fertilization will be normal, even embryo development also will be normal in the large perivitline space. And when there is, this is very important, this we see frequent in the lab. Like no, in the when there is a large perivitalized space, in this perivitalized space there will be some debris. There will be some debris in the perivitalized space. So this debris may be due to increased or overdose of gonadotropin hormone, and so by this I want to tell is that like this type of perivitalized space is normal, whereas this type of perivitalized space, it is abnormal. Why? Because sometimes embryologist may not be able to appreciate this. If there is no perivitalized space, he may not be appreciate this polar body. Okay, if he is not able, if he is not able to appreciate the polar body, then he may discard thinking that it is an M1. So this is a normal perivitalized space. And see, sometimes in the perivitline space, there will be perivitline debris, but it may be due to some physiological factor. Okay, and if it is due to physiological factor, it may not hamper the cleavage rate, embryo quality, and clinical pregnancy outcome. And studies have shown that, why I've been telling you, studies have shown that if it is due to physiological, the debris is because of physiological, if it is not because of the hormonal overdose, there is gonadotropin overdose, then everything is normal, like fertilization, cleavage, and embryo quality will be normal. And coming on to the polar body, so we are finished with zona pellucida. We are finished with the perivitalized space. Coming on to this polar body. So this polar body, it can be graded like this: grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. So grade 1 is ovoid, or we can say round and smooth. So this is grade 1, round and somewhat it is smooth. This is grade 2. Okay, it is ovoid, rough surface. The surface is smooth. This is rough surface. And this grade 3 is like it is fragmented, and grade 4 it will be giant. So among these polar body, all the 3 can be used for ICSI procedure, whereas this has to be discarded. Uh, giant polar body, usually it will be discarded because there may be some chromosomal abnormalities. Now, see, I have just summarized in a table, how to grade this polar body, what will be the outcome. So if the polar body is intact, what will be the outcome? Okay, and if the polar body is well shaped, like as grade 1, what will be the outcome? So all those things I'll not read this. So this is based on the polar body, the people have studied and they have seen the outcome. And usually it is very evident that if you are having a degenerated polar body, there will be increased fertilization rate. Now coming on to this cytoplasm, so we have already done with the zona pellucida, we have done with the perivitline space, we have done with the polar body. Generally we have done it, not in detail. Then coming on to this granulation. So granulations, this is a diffuse granulation, and you can see granulation only in this part of the oocyte. Here this is moderate granulation, and you can see here also 3/4 of the oocyte is granulated. So these are the terminology we will use when there is granulated oocytes. Okay, we say diffuse granulation, centrally granulation, peripherally granulated oocytes. All those things we use. And this normal oocyte, again I'm showing you, this is a normal oocyte. There won't be any granulation. Now, coming on to this granulation, if there is an aggregation, if there is a granulation like this type of granulation, aggregation of the granular cells in one part of the oocyte, whereas maximum part of the oocytes are okay, ooplasm is okay, then we assume that cytoplasmic maturation had not happened, whereas nuclear maturation has occurred. Okay, so if we don't get embryos with this type of granulation, we usually suggest the clinicians to increase the cycle for one more day, stimulation for one more day. And whereas this type of oocyte, like densely granulated oocyte, will have a very bad outcome, embryo outcome. There will be a lot of fragmentation maybe there. And coming out of this vacuole, so granulation is like centrally, peripherally, or totally granulated. Usually, it won't hamper the embryo development after ICSI. If it is diffuse granulation, it will hamper the embryo development. And the vacuoles. So these are the vacuoles which we see. So what is vacuole? Vacuole is nothing but it is an fusion of pre-existing vacuole derived from the Golgi complex or smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum or Golgi complex, it will produce this vacuole. So these vacuoles are, it may be one or two, or it may be more than two. There will be multiple vacuoles like this here. Where you can see small vacuoles will be there. Okay, so these vacuoles are fluid. It is a fluid filled membrane. These are the vacuoles are the membrane bound fluid filled structures present inside the ooplasm. Okay, and it is observed that 15 to 5 to 12% of the stimulated cycle will have the vacuoles. And these vacuolated oocytes have significantly reduced fertilization rate, developmental ability, so on. And so if the vacuoles are more than 14 mm in diameter, okay, it can completely block the fertilization rate. And see, this is vacuole. Membranes are clearly defined here. The membrane is clearly defined, whereas this is SER. SER, like a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so as you know, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum is a component of the cell. Okay, the main function of this is like it stores and redistributes the calcium. And what happens is that during the stimulated cycle, it will aggregate, and it appears as a rounded disc-like structure in the ooplasm. Usually it disappears when the polar body appears. If it still persists, that means there is some problem in the stimulation. Usually, when there is a problem in the stimulation, the ACR will occur. And SCR, the diameter of SCR will be usually 10 to 18 micron in diameter. And see, it is very clear that if there is an SCR, it can hamper the other organs in the ooplasm. And usually it alters mainly the spindle fiber. And secondly, SCR is not associated with, the studies have shown that SCR is not associated with the patient's age or number of retrieved oocytes or presence of endometriosis in ovaries. Endometriosis in ovaries. It is clearly mentioned in the literature that the SCR is associated with the doses, okay, like the stimulation cycle, and which is given in the stimulation cycle and duration of the gonadotropin administration. And moreover, we can't sometimes even everything is normal, stimulation is normal, everything is normal, but still you can say SCR, it may be due to genetic factor. And coming on to this refractile body, as we know that it is an other lipofuscin in like inclusions. Okay, these are nothing but the waste product of the lipid metabolism, and it has to get discarded. If it still persists, then it is called as a refractile body. Okay, this refractile body, like less than 5 micron, were associated with significantly reduced. Papers have shown that usually this won't hamper the development of oocyte. If in some patients, in some oocyte, it can affect the fertilization rate. So now coming on to this, this is brief about the oocyte morphology. Coming on this, usually grading is not done. It is not a standard grading. Some articles, few articles shows how to grade the oocyte: grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4 oocytes. Okay, So based on that, I have just put it in the slide. So coming on this, grade 1 oocyte. So grade 1 oocyte is like, see, it is round and smooth polar body. So first we see for polar body, it is round and smooth polar body. And secondly, disperse means moderate granulation in this ooplasm. And you can see, normal perivitline space. As I told you, like, normal perivitline is 3/4. You can see the space, and 1/4 is adherent to this zona pellucida. This is grade 1 oocyte. Whereas grade 2 oocyte, okay, all the features are similar to the grade 1. All the features are similar, but you can see the granulation, central granulation. So you can see the polar body here. You can see central granulation. It may be due to next cycle one more day. If we increase the central granulation, it may disappear. So this is grade 2 embryo. If there is granulation, it is grade 2 embryo. If there is no granulation, it is grade 1 embryo. And grade 3 embryo. So this grade 3 embryo, like they are totally different from the first two. Okay, and the oocyte morphology is also compromised. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, about the grade 3 embryo. So grade 3 embryos are totally different from the two, as I told you already. And you can see this. If I go back to, this, you can see this is a grade 3 embryo. See, you can we are not there is a highly granulated cytoplasm is there. The perivitline space, you can see no debris, you can see in the perivitline space, and even zona pellucida. You can see zona pellucida is not regular in shape. You can see some spikes in the zona pellucida. These are the grade 3 embryo. Whereas grade 4 embryo, so grade 4 embryo usually the oolemma itself will not be regular in shape, oolemma, and whereas everything is opposite for this grade 1 embryo. Okay, and you can see increased sometimes it's not shown here. There will be increased perivitline space. There will be even polar body will be fragmented polar body, okay, or degenerated polar body, and the zona pellucida will be thick and dark. All these qualities are grade 4 embryos quality. So that's all about grade 4 embryo. And see, this is not a standard grading. So this grading is based on few. I've just collected from few article and I've just graded it. And few article has given this grading system also. This is not standard. So finally, coming on to this students, coming on the presence of this mitotic spindle. Okay, so this is actually separate topic to be taken. This is not, I can't discuss in detail here. I just tell you, you can see this is a polarized microscope, poloscope. So you can see in the poloscope, you can see if this is a refractal, if this is a polar body. Usually below the polar body there will be this spindle, and if this is very clear, then you can see two layers of the zona pellucida also. If you are able to see, that is called as bifringens. So you can see two layers of zona pellucida. This everything is clear in the in the poloscope. Okay, or you can say polarized microscope. And this type of oocytes have the greater potential to give pregnancy. Whereas sometimes, see, even though the polar body is present here, the spindle will be present here. Spindle fiber, the spindle will be present here. So when we see, sometimes, see, for example, in this type of oocytes, if the spindle is not present here, we are injecting, we are just disrupting this spindle. So it is always good to notice the spindle and inject. But this type of thing, to observe this spindle, it will be only in this polarized microscope will be available only in few laboratories, not in all the laboratories. So always it is important to notice the spindle and inject. And the presence of this mitotic spindle has been associated. I told this presence of this mitotic spindle just below the polar body and bifringens has been associated with high pregnancy rate. And this pregnancy rates were reported. I told you this, everything I told you. And the pregnancy rates were strongly related to the normal morphology, also with the retardance of the spindle, means with this type of oocyte. So finally, coming on to the summary of today's class is that, see, I have just discussed about the extracytoplasmic, intracytoplasmic, and other than that, I discussed about the COCs, the cumulus oocyte complex, everything. So now, this table will summarize, these everything I've collected from an article. Just review of literature, I came to know these things. And you see, among these things, students, among these, this is very important, SER. So when there is an SER aggregate, there is decreased oocyte maturation, decreased fertilization rate, decreased embryo quality, and there will be decreased pregnancy rate, increased miscarriage rate. All those things will happen if there is SER. Whereas other inclusion bodies, no, which will not much hamper, okay, and whereas this SER usually, this is seen. So that's all about today's topic. So I have my information is everything from the Escher. It's not, grading is not from the Escher. All the other morphology I have just collected from the Escher Atlas of Human Embryology. You can just refer this. And moreover, it is very important to know the oocyte. If you should know what happens before the oocyte formation, is also very important. So you can just go through the site and refer this oocyte development. So that's all about today's class. Any